what usually brings success is oftentimes the product of a habit. Now, the knife cuts both ways here. Let's face it, sometimes habits are not good. Spending habits, eating habits, opioid habits. I mean, there's tons and tons of habits out there that are negative, okay? But I'm talking the positive side of habits now. Habits usually bring success. If you do something, the right thing, for a long enough period of time, consistently, you'll be successful. You ask any of these NBA players, and they're these awesome players, and they say, man, you can hit a three from a block away. And they said, yeah, when I was a kid, I shot 1,000 baskets a day no matter what. You talk to these athletes that can run like, I don't know, 20. How fast can Usain Bolt run? Like almost 30 miles an hour? It's faster than my grandma drives. I mean, I'm just telling you, that is fast. Well, how did you learn to run that fast? He says, well, I ran every day. Probably ran for his life. Over there, you're chased by the gazelles and all this stuff. And I'm sure it was something that had something to do with that. Yeah, I don't know. Digress, sorry. Anyway, so habits. We need it's true and you know it, okay? I'm just saying. Now, habits are not inherited. Habits are not inherited. They are learned. You learn your habits. It's just true. Which means that we have to own this thing, right? If there's something that we are not doing that we should, we need to own that. And if there's something that we are doing that we shouldn't, we need to own that too. We need to say, hey, I own this. You hear this all the time. Well, I was raised that way. Oh, wow, that's great. You're an adult. Let's start acting like an adult, right? So we have to put aside these childish things, these things that we shouldn't be doing, that we are, and the things that we are doing that we shouldn't be. We need to say to ourselves in ownership, I own this. It's a habit of mine, and it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. Sometime, sooner or later, you have to grow up. One guy says, if you do not change, listen to this, if you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But that's the reality. If our lives are just going this direction and we say, I don't want to be over there. Well, but you're going that way. So something sooner or later has to change, and you got to own this thing. And we got to come to some resolve, don't we? Got to have a resolution in our lives where we say, hey, if I keep going that way, and let's face it, if you go that way, you're going to end up in Eldridge, right? And if you go that way, unless you're directionally challenged, you might think that that's some other direction, but if you go that way, you're going to end up in the Mississippi. So if we say, I don't want to be in the Mississippi, you got to say, well, I got to change. I'm going to have to change these things. Do the things that get you to where you want to be. Do the things that get you to where you want to be. And don't do the things that will bring you to the place you don't want to be. If you don't want to be in the Mississippi, I wouldn't go that way. I go that way. Now here's the thing. We need to do some inventory when it comes to our habits. Okay, we need to do some inventory, some introspective type of inventory. We need to look within ourselves. We need to ask ourselves some questions here. Some questions like this. What do we do? What habit are we doing that we don't want to be doing? What habit are we doing that we don't want to be doing? Okay? And then another question, which is good with this one, is how often are we doing that? How often are we doing the things we don't want to do? And then we have to ask ourselves another question. Is this a good or bad habit? If we don't want to be doing it, it's got to be a bad habit, right? Generally speaking, I would say it's a bad habit. And if there's some things that we want to be doing, how often do we want to do them? Is this a good or bad habit? It's a good habit. So now what we need to do is we need to put these things into our life in a routine-type basis. In a routine-type basis. But let me just tell you, you got to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And if there is something that you shouldn't be doing, that you are, you need to call it what it is. I'm just saying, You got to call this thing what it is. This is the great verse. Listen to this. It says this, Proverbs 28, he that covereth his sin shall not prosper. He won't prosper. If you cover it up, you're not going to prosper. But whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall have mercy. You got to call it what it is. You got to be able to identify this enemy before you kill him. You don't just go out there and just kill a bunch of people. You say, that's the enemy. And now I'm going to kill it. And you need to identify who needs help before you go rescue them. And friends, let me just tell you, in love, there are some habits that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing. And we got to call them sin, and we got to say, hey, that's wrong. I'm going to kill it. And then you got to say, there's some things that I want to be doing. Well, like what? Well, let's start with Bible reading. Let's start with going to church. I kind of feel like I'm preaching to the choir because you're at church. But the people that hear these messages for years will always know who I'm talking about. We have to ask ourselves, what good things should we be doing? How do we listen, we need to figure out where we want to be and then do the things that are necessary to get there. Let me give you an example. If you want to be a lawyer, I would say that being a mechanic probably isn't the right way to go. Like now, say if you want to be a lawyer later, you should probably go to school to be a lawyer. Right? If you want to work at NASA, probably working at McDonald's right now is not necessarily the goal. You should probably be going to school for NASA type stuff. I don't even know what that is. What is that? What is NASA type stuff? Engineering. There you go. Engineering. I went to school. Let me tell you a quick story. I went to school with a guy. His name was Luke Probst, and he was going to school where I was going to school in northern Minnesota to work at NASA. I mean, that was his goal. His goal was to work at NASA. And it was really funny because he was in Calculus 8. And I don't know what that means to you. I'm sure what that means to me. All I know is when I had a math problem, I went to him. That's what really happened. And there was a time, I'm digressing, but you're going to be here for 2 hours. There was a time that the teacher, Gregory Sarles, he gave us an extra credit question. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll take this question. So I brought it back to my dorm and I started to work on it. And this is a guy who made things complex, by the way. And he says, I was like, man, I got to get some help with it. So I brought it to Luke, who's in Calc 8. It means he took 8 semesters of calculus. I didn't even know there was that many. And so I brought it to him, and I'm like, Luke, I said, hey, man, can you help me out with this problem? And he's like, oh, yeah. I mean, he was kind of one of these really excited to do math. I'm like, dude, can you help me? He's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He gets his pen out and he clicks it, and he's like, oh, this is going to be good. And he starts writing things down, and he's like, oh, yeah, I get this. And I'm like standing back going, dude, you need to work at NASA. They need to put you out in space somewhere. And he's sitting over there, oh, yeah. See how the quadrant formula, the blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, zoned out. I'm like thinking about dinner, And I'm just like, okay. And he's going at it, and he's like, oh, yeah. Flips the page over, and I mean, the whole page full of numbers, X's, Y's, and all these parentheses, right? Like all these brackets and stuff. And he gets it. He's like, there's your answer right there. Yeah, that's it. And I'm like, man, thank you so much, Luke. Praise God, you're done. So I went back to my dorm. Next day, I go back to my Algebra 2 class, right? Like I was like this low little individual. And he says, so did anybody finish the extra credit question? And I said, got it right here. And he says, well, why don't you run it up? And I run it up, and he says, Joe, you got her finished. And I said, how you doing, Gregory? And he says, yeah. I said, what do you got? And I said, well, right here. Yeah. Oh, that's not the, Ready? Who did this for you? And I said, now, you don't just take it by faith. And he says, that's okay. And he goes over to the board, and he says, takes his little marker out, and he's like, that's your answer. And I'm like, well, he screwed that one up, didn't he? This got to be a NASA. Anyways, I don't know where I was going with all that. I have no idea. It's gone. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good one. If you want to be somewhere, you need to do the things that are necessary to get you to that, whatever that somewhere is. And in Luke Probst's case, it was calculus, right? That's not my case. I was going for criminal justice, so I got to buy guns. That was awesome, by the way. Okay, next point. All right. So first of all, let me just reiterate. First of all, you'll need to identify the habits. Second, determine whether they're good or bad. And third, add a change. You need to add some change. You need to add a solution for this. You have to have a solution. You can't just always say, well, the problem is. The reality is we need an answer for that problem. We need an answer for the problem.